What
Yeah.
else have you learned in 26 years about,
Whew.
well, what has it
Wow.
taught you about life, taught you about God? What kinds of things have you been thinking about? Because we've had like some time since the first episode to think.
Yeah. So much, but we talked about getting through the good and the difficult times. And something that you and I, here's something a little more practical.
All right.
Something that you and I intentionally decided at some point, I don't remember when, but we didn't live with this as an unspoken assumption. You and I said this to each other. Divorce is not on the table, and it is not an
Ever.
option.
Ever.
Right.
Right. No matter
So-
how dark things get,
Yeah.
that will never come on the table because we made a commitment for life. And
Mm-hmm.
I think we would rather learn the lesson of getting through the tough patch than calling it quits.
Right, right.
Now, there are some people out there, I understand there are situations where you didn't have a choice. You're with someone who abuses you and your children or
Yes.
those kinds of things, or they cheat on you.
Yes.
You know,
There are biblical times when divorce is an option.
it's
We're not talking
allowable
about that.
and it may be the only option left. That's not
Right.
what we're talking about. You
Right.
and I have decided no matter how much we disagree about something,
Right.
no matter, there are times of life that are exceptionally stressful.
Mm-hmm.
Your career is tough and then your kids have issues that they need help with and you're sleeping 4 hours a night for weeks on end and then there's tension in the home. And we have said right out of the gate, we said that we would take this vow to each other in front of God, and it's for life. And divorce will never be on the table as an option.
And when you, again, just speaking from personal experience, that's all I can do. When we got married, I never even thought that divorce was an option. I mean, you don't even think about that in the beginning of your marriage because everything, even the difficult
magical.
times, are
Everything
still
is
kind
magical.
of dreamy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, but I think, and maybe there's a couple listening to us now that is past the 5 or 10 year mark of marriage, where reality is really, really sunk in. I think it was.
That sounds like
Does that sound dark?
That sounds like you've been struggling with bitter disappointment since your 10th wedding anniversary.
No, 5th. I said 5 or 10.
5 or 10. So for 21 years,
21
you've been
years.
gritting your teeth and bearing it.
No,
All right.
no, that's not what I'm saying. But look, we all know it is not. I think you used the analogy. It's not like a Disney story. This is real life, and real life is not always rosy. But I think there was a lot of power and value for me when you and I just said to each other, we said the words, divorce is not an option.
Correct.
And so if you haven't just said that to your spouse, listeners, I think just verbalizing it's powerful and it's meaningful. It shouldn't just be an unspoken assumption.
Right.
Hearing it from you hearing it from me, I assume that you know that person really believes that it's not just unspoken. So having said that, what else have I learned from marriage? So much. But here's taking it back to how it's shown me what God is like. You have really shown me, Sean, in your commitment to our marriage and the way that you have kept your promises and you have always been faithful to the promises you've made to me. You have shown me that I can trust you, a human male who is flawed.
No, wait a minute. What do you mean?
Yes, you're flawed.
Flawed.
Well, you're not perfect. You are a human. But me having let myself trust you fully has shown me how much more I can trust God. Because if I can trust my life in your hands, how much more shouldn't I be able to trust God, who is perfect and who does see everything? And so it's illustrated for me. It's given me the ability to trust and to trust you, but to trust Him as well.
Well, let me look at that from a distinctly male perspective. And I think what I have picked up in 26 years of marriage is that I want to make sure I phrase this correctly, that I phrase it exactly. Mm-hmm. I'll put it this way. Vulnerability can be worth it. And I say it that way because I am not naturally vulnerable. I'm an introvert by nature. I don't like lots of extended relationships. I don't like the entanglements involved in millions of friendships. We have a daughter who just never met someone who isn't her best friend.
Oh, yeah.
That is not me at all.
She's your opposite.
And I think we all get burned along the way. You make yourself vulnerable and get hurt. And so, especially for guys, here I am being vulnerable on the air, which is not a guy thing at all, but you start to say, okay, it's not worth it. I'm not going to expose myself. I'm not going to take these risks. I'm not going to put my intimate details in somebody's hands. And yet I put all my intimate, there's nothing you don't know about me. I don't think so. I mean, you know me better than I know you. Let's be really, really honest. I mean, you can tell when I'm trying to pull your leg. There's some kind of a twitch in my eye, like, okay, that's not a true story. Oh, I just backed into your car, so sorry about it. And you just look at my face and you know that I'm just trying to tease you.
Right.
Vulnerability can be worth it. Now, where's the lesson between me and God? Sinners don't like to be vulnerable before God because, well, sin is based in pride. Sin is based on, I've got it from here, Lord. No, thank you, sir. I'll do things my way. And we're all kind of born with that. And the world kind of drills that into us. You are on your own. Take care of yourself. Watch your back. And then God says, I need you to be vulnerable. You want to be in a relationship with me. You're going to have to confess your sins. You're going to have to admit that you need my help. And I think that may be to a degree why so many men are missing from church, because that doesn't come naturally to us. I've discovered that it can be well worth the risk because you've never betrayed my secrets. Now, secrets makes it sound like I have something heinous in the closet. No, there are no dead bodies in my wake or anything like that. It's nothing heinous.
No.
But I've discovered it can, the rewards of allowing yourself to be vulnerable with someone that you've entered into a covenant with. Worth it. And God invites us into a covenant with him.
Well, and I'll just add to that. It's by nature, I think it's easier for me to be vulnerable, and maybe that's my gender a little bit, but it's my personality. Having said that, it's very, very, very difficult for me to be vulnerable with anyone but you and our daughters. You are my safe space. You're my circle of safety. And so being vulnerable with you it comes more naturally for me. And I think if you can't be vulnerable with your spouse and you then look for someone outside of your marriage that you can be vulnerable with, that's dangerous territory.
No,
and that's where you start to become attached to the person or persons you can be vulnerable with. And so if you can't be that with your spouse, I don't think you should be that with anyone personally.
Well, I think that's also where a lot of trouble begins in marriages, when people wander outside the marriage covenant and look for vulnerability and relationships that should exist in the marriage, and then you build them outside, and then suddenly there's an affair. And that actually teaches you something about God, too. What's interesting to me is how often God compares his relationship to us in sexual terms. He's the groom, we are the spouse, and he looks for marital fidelity, and he compares going after other gods to marital infidelity. This is what he would call fornication.
Right.
And so when we form attachments to something other than God and give away what belongs to God, idol worship is the example you find all through the Bible. You're making yourself vulnerable to something or somebody that doesn't really care about you and you can't trust. And God is on the sidelines, frankly, probably hurt, saying, look, you can trust me. Why won't you trust me? So trust in a marriage is an important skill to learn, and it opens your eyes. Maybe there is something I can trust out there. And there is. I mean, someone, I should say. You can trust God with this stuff. It's worth it. It pays to be vulnerable with God.
Absolutely. That's where the relationship with him really grows. That's where we really can have a deep relationship with God, is when we're willing to open our hearts to him.
Right, right.